Welcome back to BTL Productions. Today we are going to talk about a different car. A car that quite possibly saved General Motors from the Japanese manufacturers in the 1970s and into the 1980s. What is this car? Stick with me and I'll tell you all about it. Welcome back, guys. So, what is this car that I am talking about? Well, the car is a very unlikely one. It's not a muscle car. It's not anything exciting at all. But it was a very important car for General Motors in the 1970s into the 80s. That car is the Chevrolet Chevette. What a lot of people used to refer to as their vet. It also had its Pontiac counterpart, the Pontiac Acadian, but we are, for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on the Chevrolet version, the Chevette. They were pretty much the same car, so the story pretty much goes the same way. It was the mid-1970s. America was in trouble. Gas prices were through the roof. Big V8 engines were choking under new emissions laws, and people needed something cheap and efficient just to get to work, school, take the kids on little day trips, stuff like that. So enter Chevrolet and their unlikely hero, a tiny rear-wheel drive hatchback built not for power or prestige, but for survival. This is the story of the Chevrolet Chevette, the car everyone loved to hate, but quietly became one of GM's best-selling small cars of all time. After the 1973 oil crisis, GM was left scrambling to compete with imported cars like the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Civic. Much smaller cars then than what they are today, but either way. Their previous attempts, the Chevy Vega, failed miserably, plagued with rust, oil-burning engines, and recalls. So Chevrolet went looking for something safer, something already proven. They turned to GM's International T-Car platform, a small rear-wheel drive design used in Europe and South America. The result? The Chevrolet Chevette, unveiled in 1975 as a 1976 model. It promised simplicity, fuel economy, and one big thing Americans needed most at that time, affordability. I think we could use one of these cars today. What do you guys think? I'm going to talk about one of my other videos soon about Ford and how they're investigating this possibility. Anyhow, when it debuted, the Chevette was Chevrolet's smallest and cheapest car. Base price was under $3,000, about the cost of a nice motorcycle today. It came with a tiny 1.4-liter engine producing just 52 horsepower. I think I've had a number of snowmobiles and jet skis with more horsepower than this, but anyhow. Acceleration was slow, but the fuel economy was king, up to 40 miles per gallon on the highway, which was absolutely incredible for this day and age. People that had like 400 cubic inch V8 engines under these big land yachts that people were driving at this time. So 40 miles per gallon was pretty impressive. The Chevette offered a 2-door and a 4-door hatchback with a simple interior, vinyl seats, manual windows, and basically not much else. But for families struggling with gas prices, it was perfect. Not only did they get an affordable car that was great on gas and had all the basics, but they got to buy a new car. They didn't have to buy a used one. So they got a brand new car, warranty, and everything. So it was pretty amazing, pretty exciting for people at this time. Chevrolet even introduced a base model called the Chevrolet Chevette Scooter, one of the most bare-bone cars ever sold in America. No radio, no armrest, even the rear seat was optional at first. I didn't even know that one. Yet somehow it's sold. In fact, in 1977, Chevrolet sold over 275,000 Chevettes, making it one of the top selling small cars in the United States. It wasn't fast, it wasn't glamorous, but it was cheap and it worked. These engines were not powerful, but they were monikered the name the Iron Duke because they basically didn't fail. They didn't have a lot going for them, but they did have reliability and fuel economy. And you know what? That's what people were looking for at the time. Through the late 70s and into the early 80s, the Chevette slowly evolved. Engines grew to 1.6 liters, and GM even offered a 1.8 liter diesel option. And this was sourced from the Isuzu Motor Company that could hit nearly 50 miles per gallon. In 1981, the car got a mild facelift. New grille, bigger bumpers, improved dashboard, and a slightly better materials and build quality than it had been previously. But under the skin, it was the same simple rear-wheel drive design. But now, most competitors had switched to front-wheel drive. But the Chevette soldiered on, proudly old school, proudly efficient, and yeah, proudly affordable. Driving a Chevette was, well, an experience. 0 to 60 took a mind-blowing 17 seconds. Yeah, 17 seconds. So you want to get on the highway, you better not be in too much of a hurry. Once I got up to speed, it was okay, but it was just going to take you quite a while to get there. The ride could get bumpy on rough roads as well, but it was efficient and it was reliable. But because it was so simple, it was cheap to fix also, easy to park, and surprisingly durable. Students, delivery drivers, retirees, and mothers. Everyone who needed basic transportation loved it. It got the kids to school, got you to your job, and yeah, it worked. The Chevette became the car you learned to drive on, the car your parents handed down to you, or the car you bought when you just basically couldn't afford anything else. By the mid 1980s, the Chevette was showing its age. Front wheel drive cars like the Chevy Cavalier and the Chevy Spectrum were taking over. Still, the Chevette refused to die. Production continued all the way until 1987, long after most of its competitors had moved on from this platform. In total, 2.7 million Chevettes were sold in North America, an incredible number for a car that everyone basically joked at. And it was the last rear-wheel drive subcompact car GM ever built. Over the years, the Chevette earned a mixed reputation. To some, it was cheap junk, slow, plain, and disposable. But to others, it was honest transportation. It didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. It was light, mechanical, and easy to work on, something modern cars can't always say. And even today can say even less. Today, you'll still find diehard fans keeping these alive, not for speed or nostalgia, but for nostalgia. Actually, oddly enough, for some reason, this is what sparked my interest in doing this video, was the fact that I've seen quite a few of these cars suddenly on the road lately, and restored versions of these cars, and I hadn't seen most of these cars in years, so I guess people are finding them in barns and scrapyards somewhere. I'm not sure, but they're kind of neat to see. So while the Chevette disappeared from the U.S. showrooms in 1987, it lived on around the world. I did not realize this, but in Brazil, versions of the Chevette were built until 1993, including a pickup and a wagon. Globally, the Chevette platform helped GM enter dozens of new markets, a quiet success story behind the scenes. Back home, it paved the way to a future economy, cars like the Geo Metro, Chevy Aveo, Pontiac Firefly, Chevy Sprint, and even today's Chevrolet Trax. The Chevrolet wasn't flashy, but it certainly wasn't fast, but it did exactly what it was built to do. It helped Americans survive a tough era of change, 1 gallon at a time. It may not be remembered as a legend, but for millions of people, the Chevette was a first car, a family car, a symbol of simplicity, and for the younger people out there at the time, a symbol of freedom. And that's something worth remembering. Let me know in the comments below. Did you own a Chevette? Did your parents own a Chevette? I'd like to hear your story on that. So anyhow, before you leave, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified of any new content that I put out. As always, I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.